Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. For those of you who are joining us in person, for those of you who are joining us on this Zoom, for the first of at least a couple of sessions that we're going to have about the Dabbing of Shabbos. So this is an idea, and I'd like to first of all thank Alex Klein for this idea. Alex, we had this idea previously when we did it before the Yom Noraim. We did one for Rosh Hashanah, we did one for Yom Kippur, we did one for Sukkot, which were quite popular, and we had said at the time that we'll do more for Shabbos. I'm sorry it's taken a little bit longer for us to get our act together, but I am happy that tonight we're here together to discuss the Shabbos davening and to really start to understand what the Shabbos davening is all about. I will start with the following, and then I'll get into Kabbalah Shabbos, which is what we're going to mainly deal with tonight. And that is, Shabbos davening is something that is very, very uplifting. It brings people together in a very amazing way. I often think back, one of the places that I think back to for my Shabbos davening, which we're going to speak about a bit later, is the city of Tzfas. Anybody here been to the city Safed? If you've been to Tzfas, you will know that they have a multitude of shuls and they have beautiful places where you could daven. And one of those places, we used to go away for Hanukkah to a Shabbaton in Tzfas with my yeshiva, and the place we used to go daven was Breslov. So you went to Breslov, which was pretty far down the hill. You start Tzfas is like a hill, and you come down and down and down. It was pretty far down the hill, quite near the old cemetery of Tzfas. And when you were in there, it was very interesting to see all the different types of people that would come to daven over there. You'd see people that are very traditional. You'd see people that are ultra orthodox. You'd see people that were wearing bekishes. You see people even in the Yerushalmi garb, the gold one with the blue stripes, everything with the shtreimels. I remember it was the first time I ever saw somebody wearing a shtreimel, wearing one of those gold garbs with the blue stripes on them with 6 safety pins in his ear. That's what the guy looked like. I mean, this is a true story that I saw this person. I couldn't believe that people actually have this multitude sort of personalities within them. And what happened is you stand there and you daven, and the davening was just electric. It was a beautiful davening, and it would do such an amazing job at bringing in. Yes, Alex, Adam is joining us. He's with me. He's just we're just taking turns, so we're standing socially distanced. But of course, Adam's here. Of course, the Chazan's here. So the multitudes of people over there and what the davening did for them, regardless of what sort of background you came from, it really brought in Shabbos in a tremendous way. And Shabbos davening is one of those things that so many people tell me that they're missing. Whilst during the week they say, look, I might be davening better, I might be davening worse, I'm davening on Zoom, I'm davening at home, but there's no real way of making up for true Shabbos davening in a shul where the community davens along, just laying in Basel over here, where the community davens along, where everybody feels together as a kehillah with the Kriyas HaTorah and with the davening beforehand and with the singing as a community. And so therefore Shabbos davening is something that's very, very special. And thank God it comes around every single week. And, it's not meant to be A, monotonous, and B, it's not meant to be meaningless. And what we're going to try to do tonight is try to give a little bit more meaning to the davening of Friday night. Again, as I said, there is a lot to be covered. We're probably not going to cover everything tonight. We'll see how much we manage to cover, what we won't manage to cover. I have some notes. The Chazan has some notes. Obviously, the Chazan is going to be singing some of the Shabbos favorites as well. And then, if there are any questions, maybe at the end we'll take the questions. And hopefully, the next session will then be either about Zemiros. We might even do 3 sessions. So we'll have 1 session about Zemiros and another session about Shabbos day davening. We might combine the sessions. We're not sure yet. So I'd like to speak a little bit tonight about the first bit of the davening on Friday night, which is Kabbalah Shabbos. You speak about Kabbalah Shabbos, accepting or bringing in the Shabbos. The Gemara says in Shabbos that as Shabbos was coming in, what then people used to do is they used to go into the fields to welcome Shabbos. This developed into Lechadodi and into the whole Kabbalah Shabbos. And in Tzfas, which is one of those places, again, that we spoke about, where it was the city of the Kabbalists. It was really the city where people came together to feel the depth and the meaning of the Torah, is where people used to then go out into the fields literally. And they used to welcome in the Shabbos. And we work through our way from Lechadodi, creating a special song that discusses bringing in and welcoming in the Shabbos, which we'll discuss much more length later. And then we make our way back to the first 6 chapters in Tehillim that we read before the Chododi. Just 1 second, letting get in as well. So we'll have the 6 Tehillims that we have before the Chododi. And what we're going to start with tonight is L'chun Neranano. So I'm just going to get myself a little siddur. Actually, I'm going to get 2 siddurim so I can give you page numbers. If you did want to follow along, if you want to look this up yourselves, if you have an Art Scroll siddur, it's page 308 in one of these siddurim. And if you have a green Chief Rabbi siddur, I don't have all the different versions of the Chief Rabbi siddur, but the most recent Chief Rabbi siddur, Lord Sax's siddur, Olav Shalom. So you'd find the Kabbalah Shabbos starts on page 258, 258. We're going to not discuss the Yedid Nefesh. Maybe we'll discuss Yedid Nefesh when we get to Shalashudas, etc., etc. Many communities have Yedid Nefesh as the introduction. We're not going to do that tonight. So we're going to go straight into these 6 chapters of the Tehillim. And we'll start with L'chun Neranano. The first 6 chapters of the Tehillim that we have as an introduction for the davening on Shabbos, these speak very much about Hashem's mastery of the world, and that's really the theme of Shabbos as well. Why did God create Shabbos? Why did he give us this idea of Shabbos? The idea of Shabbos is, the way I like to sometimes say it is, there are certain areas that allow people to walk past them. So you have, if I had in my garden a shortcut, I know certain people that have in their gardens, they have a shortcut, and everybody walks through that shortcut and uses that shortcut in order to get from one place to another. What happens then once in a while is that the person whose garden it is needs to shut that gate and not let people through. Because if you let it happen for too long, this becomes a public thoroughfare. It becomes everybody's. I don't know how long it has to happen in law in order for that to be. But if people have unhindered access for a certain amount of years, at that point it becomes public property and it ceases to be this specific individual's alone. And so therefore, Shabbos is the same idea. It's God saying once every 7 days, he says, look, I've given you the world. The world is yours to use as much as you want to. You can do anything you want to within this world. However, on day 7, I want you to rest, not to do any creative activity, reminding yourself that I rested on the 7th day. God rested on the 7th day, which is one of the themes we're going to be speaking about within Kabbalah Shabbos and the Shabbos Davening. I rested on day 7, and therefore I'd like you to rest on day 7 also. And so we remind ourselves of God's mastery over the world, right as we come into Shabbos, to say to ourselves, God is the master over the world. That's the theme, an overarching theme of Shabbos as well. And if we remember those 2 things, God's mastery over the world and Shabbos being the sign and the symbol of that, as we go into the Kabbalah Shabbos, acceptance of Shabbos, the L'chun Neranano, etc., you'll see that's the first step that we take towards this idea of Shabbos. I now hand over to our very able Chazan, who's going to keep you going with this, with these themes and with the songs and other things that go.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for joining us. Nice to see so many people coming. So as the Rav said, Kabbalah Shabbos originated mainly in Tzfat, and it was an innovation. It was an extra part of the davening which was incorporated into the Siddur after the Siddur was originally put together. And because of its position as an innovation, people went about doing Kabbalah Shabbos slightly differently. In Tzfat, they apparently went out to the fields, and that was part of the process. But even to this day, some shuls make an innovation when it comes to Kabbalah Shabbos. So whilst in some shuls, if you daven from an omud as opposed to a bimah, so they daven from the omud at the front of the shul. For some shuls, they'll daven Kabbalah Shabbos from the bimah, and only at Ma'ariv, which is one of the official services, if you like, will they move to the omud. But because Kabbalah Shabbos is slightly different, they'll daven it from the bimah. And also, some shuls, especially in Israel, they'll allow children to daven, to lead the congregation in Kabbalah Shabbos, again, because it was an innovation. And actually, I've got a confession to make, that the very first davening I ever led was Kabbalah Shabbos. I think it must have been, I was working out, was August 1995. We were at a family simcha in London, and we were going to have to walk about 4 miles on Shabbos morning to go to the shul where the simcha was. So on Friday night, we went to a more local shul, which was Finchley Central Shul. And I went with my dad, Oliver Shalom, and my brothers. And they somehow roped me into, as an 11-year-old, to leading Kabbalah Shabbos in Finchley Central Shul. And that was the first time, apart from Anim Zemiris or whatever else, that's the first time I can recall leading the service. Whether I did a good job or not, I don't know. But here we are, 25, 26 years later, still trying to do it. So we're going to start with Lechuna Ranano, and there is traditional nusach for Kabbalah Shabbos, and I'm going to do a little bit of traditional nusach. But again, wherever I've been throughout the world, Friday night is a time where people, and the service really lends itself to people joining in and people singing. Be that a Kolbach Friday night, and Kolbach has its own beautiful parts and its own controversies in the world of Nusach, but it definitely has something to add. Be that, again, I remember as a student spending a Shabbos in Munich with some friends, and we went to a very Yekish shul where it was we had all the customs as they should be, and they sang some beautiful melodies for Lechuna Ranano. I was just trying to remember it. I just couldn't come to mind. But for several of the Tehillim, they sang beautiful melodies, completely different to Kolbach melodies, but the same idea that everybody was joining in, even in a very Yekish, a very austere setting. The same idea prevailed, that Friday night davening was a time for everyone to be involved and everyone to take part. So I'm just going to start with Lechuna Ranano, just a plain bit of Nusach, and then maybe something a bit more embellished. So the words of Lechuna Ranano read as follows: Lechu, come, Neranano Hashem, let us sing to Hashem. So it's a perfect time to be singing, not to just go. That's basically right if it was nusach, but it's not norio. It's not singing. It's not neranano. It's not singing. It's not norio. It's not calling out, which is what the words say. So if we try and do a bit of nusach with a bit of perush hamilus, with understanding and expressing the words, we might go something along the lines as follows. Lechu neraneno lado Hashem noriya letzur yishevenu. And if we were doing a Kolbach davening, just along the lines of Kolbach, just to give you an idea of what that might be, a bit more an opportunity for people to join in. Lechuna Ranano lado Hashem noriya letzur yeshayenu nekadem avanav besayeda bizmirais noriya lo. There's a couple of people in the waiting room. I'll just let them in. I'll just jump to another line, just another one of the Tehillim that we say on Friday night. The next one, Shir Hashem. So just the end of Shir Hashem, Yismechu Hashamayim. I'll do some, again, traditional Nusach. I think this comes from the Blue Book, or it's very much an Anglo or Western European approach of the simple Nusach. This is page 310 in the Art Scroll Siddur. Yismechu hashamayim v'sogei la'aretz yiram hayom u'meloi yaloi sadai v'chol asher boi oz yiranenu kol atzei Yahweh לפני ידי השם קיווה לשפוע את הארץ, ישפוט תבל בצדק וימים באמונה Just a few little snippets of pure and plain nusach, but how that can add to a Shabbos evening davening. I think we're going to jump now to Mizmor David. So the final Tehillim 29, which we say on as part of Kabbalah Shabbos before Lechadoidi, I'm just going to sing the Kolbach tune, which again, if we've gone through Kabbalah Shabbos, again, as we keep on saying the word Kolbach, Kolbach Nusach became very popular in the 50s and the 60s, whether as Chazonim and as purveyors and defenders of Nusach, one should be doing a whole Friday night davening in the Kolbach theme, and therefore abandoning traditional Nusach is a controversy. Probably if you want people to join in and people to take part in the davening, the way to do it is to lead the davening with traditional proper Nusach and to introduce some of the tunes that Shlomo Kolbach made famous and that people throughout the world know. And one of those tunes is definitely Mizmor LeDavid. Mizmor LeDavid, Havlad Shem Bnei Yerim, Havlad Shem, Kavod Vavos, Havlad Shem, Kavod Shemai, Ishtach Havlad Shem, Ve'adras Kodesh, Ayai, Koil Hashem, Alamoyim, Keil HaKavod, Irim, Al Hashem, Al Mayim, Al Mayim, Mayim Rawabim, Koil Hashem, Vakoyach, Koil Hashem, Be'adar, Koil Hashem, Shoyver Arazim, Vayeshaber Hashem, Esar Zei Alvonoin, Ayai, Vayarkidei K'moy Egel, Levonoin V'Siryoin, K'moy V'Reimim, Koil Hashem, Koil Tzev Lav V'Seish, Koil Hashem, Yochil Migidbar, Yochil Adonai Hashem, Midbar Kodesh, Koil Adonai Hashem, Yechoil Elai Yolais, Vayeches Avoy, Ye'arais, Uveichalavai, Kuloi Amerikavai, Ayai, Au Hashem, Lama Bul Yashov Yishev, Hashem Melech Le'olam, Au Hashem, Oiz Li'am Yitein Hashem Yevarech, Esamoi Vashalom, Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay.
Okay. Coming back to what we were talking about before, about the Kabbalah Shabbos. I was just listening to the Chazan now singing that. I actually closed my eyes and I imagine myself being back in the Beis Medrash. It's one of those things that I miss very, very much. We stopped singing this with Corona. We're sort of trying to minimize the amount of public singing because the singing sort of spreads around the virus and spreads around droplets. So it's not so much that we don't appreciate the singing, but during the current pandemic, it was advised by the chief rabbi's office through the chief medical officer, et cetera, to try to keep the singing of hymns and other things within the community to minimum. So but I'll just close my eyes and there are two things that I remember listening to this. Number one is just the Beis Medrash. Before Corona hit, we actually were having, especially on Friday night in the winter, we could have up to 70 people in the Beis Medrash. There were chairs being brought in and more chairs being brought in, and people really, I think the fact that it was a small room and that everybody sang along and that everybody got into the spirit of things really helped that more and more people came. And from the first Shabbat UK, that's when people started coming more to Friday night davening, and it became a thing. More and more people came, and I was just closing my eyes and remembering standing there looking out at the entire community and everybody singing along. It was a very beautiful sight, and it's something that I miss quite sorely. And the other one was Shabbat UK, the first Shabbat UK that we had. I don't know how many of you weren't there, but if you remember the following story that happened, or the following incident, is that we were davening, and the Chazan was davening together with a choir made up of Belzers. And what happened was we started Mizmor LeDavid, and suddenly people started dancing, and we danced in the aisles and we danced in the shul for half an hour to this song, just over and over and over again. And that's part of that power that lies within this Mizmor LeDavid that Carlebach composed, and it is something that's very, very special. We now move on to Lecha Dodi Likras Kala. Lecha Dodi Likras Kala, so you're looking at page 266 in the Chief Rabbi Siddur. You'd be at page 316 in the Art Scroll Siddur. So Lecha Dodi Likras Kala is a song that was written by Rabbi Shlomo Alkabetz. Rabbi Shlomo Alkabetz, one of the great Kabbalists in Tzfas, known actually as, known as Lecha Dodi. That's almost what they call him, and is as his code name, as his nickname. Obviously, that he wrote a lot more than just Lecha Dodi. Was a tremendous Talmid Chacham. Was also the rabbi of Rabbi Moshe Cordovero, one of the foremost students of Kabbalah, and he lived at the same time as the Arizal. There were a few very, very big Gedolim that lived at the same time. So you had the Beis Yosef, the author of the Shulchan Aruch, lived at that time, who was the Rav, and then you have Rav Shlomo Alkabetz, you had the Alshich, who was the Darshan, the Alshich HaKadosh, and you had Rav Shlomo Alkabetz, who wrote the Nigunim. It was a very, very special time in Tzfas. And Rav Shlomo Alkabetz writes this Lecha Dodi that has really two themes, but the two themes come together to be one theme. One theme is Shabbos, and the other theme is redemption. And the two themes come together in that we say that Shabbos is Yom, we refer to actually the time of the redemption as Yom Shekula Shabbos, the day that will entirely be made up of Shabbos. There will be a day like Shabbos. Now, that doesn't mean forever and ever we won't be able to turn on lights, or we won't be able to drive in cars, etc., etc. But that closeness and the special feel of Shabbos is something that will continue on into the time of Mashiach. And therefore, if we look at Lecha Dodi, going through the beginning, you see over here, Lecha Dodi Likras Kala, come my beloved to greet the bride. Shabbos is the bride in this instance. So we're talking to the Jewish people, my beloved people. The Jewish people are called Dodi again and again within Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs. Many people, especially Hasidic people, have the minhag to say Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs, before they say Kabbalah Shabbos. So you have Lecha Dodi Likras Kala, come my beloved towards the Kala, towards Shabbos. Pnei Shabbos and Kabbalah, let us accept the face of Shabbos. Let's welcome in the Shabbos. So I'll go through one of the stanzas in the Shabbos themed bits, and then I'm going to try to go through one of the stanzas in the other bits about the redemption, just to give you a flavor of it, and then the Chazan will come up and we'll give you a flavor of the Nigunim as well. So Shama v'zacha b'dibur echad. And again, if you read through, I guess it's true with all poetry, and it's true as well, very much so, with poetry that's written about religious poetry. Religious poetry, as much as other poetry, comes through where you have to know certain things. You have to know certain items that are being referred to. So when we say Shama v'Zacha b'Dibur Echad means that when God gave the first 10 commandments, it says Zachas Yom HaShabbos HaKadosh. You should remember the day of Shabbos to sanctify it. The second set of 10 commandments, repeated by Moshe Rabbeinu in Devarim, doesn't say Zachas Yom HaShabbos HaKadosh, but it says Shama es Yom HaShabbos HaKadosh. But we know that Chazal tell us Shama v'Zachar, the word Shama and Zachar were said b'dibur echad. They were actually said together. What human beings cannot do, God obviously can do. And so people heard the word Zachar and Shama at the same time. So Shama v'Zachar b'dibur echad, that has not only implications for the fact of God's power, but also implications within the halachics of Shabbos, telling us that women have the same status on Shabbos as men do. So Shama v'Zachar b'dibur echad, observe and remember, was said together in one act of speech. Hishmiyanu kelam yuchad, the one and only God made us hear them all at once. Hashem echad u'shmai echad, and therefore we say God is one and His name is one. That's how great God is. L'shem u'tzifaz v'silah, for renown, for splendor, and for praise. That's God's name. And then you go back to l'chad dodi likras kala v'nei Shabbos ne Kabbalah. Likras Shabbos u'chumenecha. Let's go towards Shabbos as well. And then we hit Migdash Melech. As soon as you hear Migdash Melech, we start speaking about Yerushalayim. And there is a lot of interesting discussion over here as we tell Yerushalayim, we're sort of letting it rise. So you start off Migdash Melech, the city, Ir Melucha of the royal city, Kumi ganaptzi mitach from your ruined state. Ravlach sheves me'emek habacha, you shouldn't sit anymore, dwell anymore in the valley of tears. V'hu yachmar l'alaichem, and God will have mercy on you. And then you get up, you said to the next one, Hisnari me'afar kumi, shake yourself off the dust. Hisarari, wake up, wake up. Lo sevosh v'leisikami, you will not be, you will not be embarrassed anymore, and you will be ashamed. Those who despoiled you will be despoiled, and those who devoured you will be far away. And then right and left, you'll spread out. Yerushalayim will become a big place. As Hashem Taritzin, Hashem you revere. And then we get back to Shabbos. Everyone turns around to welcome the Shabbos, and you say, Boi b'shalom ateres bala, come in peace, the crown of her husband. That means the crown, as you know, normally when we speak about a woman, the pasuk says in Mishlei, it says, Eishes chayil ateres bala. And Eishes chayil, a woman of valor, is the crown of her husband. So here we say, you too, Shabbos, which is the crown of the Jewish people. Boi b'shalom ateres bala, come in peace, come mesimcha v'tzahala, with joy and jubilation. Toch emune am segula, among the faithful of the treasured people. Who the treasured people? The Jewish people. Boichala, and you bow down to the kala as it comes in. Boichala in one direction, you turn around. Boichala back to the front, and then you go back to sing L'cha Dodi Likras Kala. It's just interesting to note, we don't have it here in the Ashkenazi tradition, but in the Sephardic tradition, Nusach Sfard, specifically by the Hasidim, they say at this point before the Chadodi, come, let us go out. They say what the Gemara says, let's go out to welcome Shabbos the Queen, which the Chadodi is really based on that idea. They send it that first before they start the Chadodi as well. I hand over now to the Chazan, who will regale you with his different versions of the Chadodi.
So as the Rabbi pointed out, Reb Shlomo Halevi Alkabetz was the composer of L'Chododi, and if you look down the side of your Siddur, you can see the acrostic of the verses spells out his name. So we have Shomer, Shin, Likras, Lamed, Mikdash Mem, and Hisnari Hey. So that says Shlomo, and then the final four verses of Hisori, Loisigosh, Vahoyu, and Yomin say Shlomo Halevi. So a true poet, he managed to add an acrostic there as well. So L'Chododi generally is the minhag where appropriate, and it has been transcribed over the years in many different traditions to specific tunes for specific times of the year. So during the days of Sephira, there should be specific tunes, and then Chazanim and shuls over the years have made it, when you're in certain times of the year, if you're in Kislev and you're at Hanukkah time, you're going to sing a Hanukkah tune. If it's Adar and it's Purim time, let's sing a Purim tune. If it's just before Pesach, let's sing a Pesach tune. So there are loads of different tunes, and I guess as a chazan, it's always important that if you are choosing your own tune to put the words of L'Chododi to, that the tune is fitting for such words. We're describing we're describing Shabbos, we're describing Yerushalayim, we're describing words which were written down by basically very, very holy men and very holy words. And it's really not appropriate to put certain tunes to certain prayers. And that's very important that the person who's leading the davening thinks about the words which are being said and makes sure that what they're doing is appropriate. So just before I sing one or two tunes, we generally change the tune halfway through at the verse of Lo Sevoishi, and I'm happy to take any pointers from this to this from anyone in the audience. I don't know if Chazan Marx has anything on this, but there seems to be an old Frankfurt minhag to change the verse, change the tune at Hisairari. And they changed it at Hisairari because that marked a sort of a change in the description and what was being described in the tune, in the words. So for the minhag was an old, how old I don't know, but probably 400 years old. The minhag was that there was a slow tune at the beginning of L'Chodaidi, and when we got to Hisairari, which is the words, we repeat them, Hisairari, Hisairari, wake up, wake up, they went to a more upbeat and forward-looking tune. That seems to be the old minhag, but that minhag seems to be now worldwide. That one changed the tune at Lo Sevoishi, and I tried to do, Alex, it was a German custom. I said it was a Frankfurt, originated in Frankfurt in Germany. It seems to be what we all change at Lo Sevoishi, and I tried to do some research about where that came from and why we do that, and nobody seems to have a good enough reason as to why. Everyone quotes this old German minhag of changing at Hisairari, but then everyone says, well, nowadays we change at Lo Sevoishi, but we're not quite sure. The only reason I saw given was by somebody commentating on this on the Siddur, and he said perhaps it's because it's the only verse in L'Chodaidi which says that starts with the word lie. It's a bit negative, so to counteract the negative, even though it's not really, it's a bit of a negative verse, to counteract the negative, to keep us positive on a Friday night, we change the tune. Who knows, but it seems to be that it's accepted custom worldwide or in many shuls to change the tune at that point. So I'm just going to sing a regular tune for L'Chodaidi, which I'm sure everybody will know, and then I'll sing a couple of verses like that, and then I'll sing a Lo Sevoishi from Mojitz, the Hasidim, a very famous Lo Sevoishi. L'Chodaidi likras kala, b'nei Shabbos nekabela. L'Chodaidi likras kala, b'nei Shabbos nekabela. Shamar v'zachar b'dibur echad, hishmiyanu elam meyuchad, Hashem echad, u'shema echad, l'shem u'siferes v'lisila. L'Chodaidi likras kala, b'nei Shabbos nekabela. L'Chodaidi likras kala, b'nei Shabbos nekabela. Likras Shabbos lechu v'nei lecha, ki mekol oira v'racha, mehiraish mikedem nesucha, zayf masek machshavot tchila. L'Chodaidi likras kala, b'nei Shabbos nekabela. L'Chodaidi likras kala, b'nei Shabbos nekabela. If we turn to page 318, this is Lo Sevoishi, where, as I said, it's traditional to change the tune. This is a tune from Mojitz, Hasidim, Hasidic movement, very famed for its tunes. All its Rebbes composed many tunes, and it was, I think, annually the Rebbes taught a new tune to the Hasidim, so they have a wellspring of beautiful tunes and many marches and very Hasidic style music, and this is a tune from Mojitz. Yam badadam ba, loy say v'hoyeshi, v'loy sikalemi, ma'awad ishtoy chachi, matemi, yam badadam ba, badadadam, b'ch yechesu, ani awami, v'ani imnesa, Iraltila lecha novomoidi likras kavalo yana na 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 Bnei Shabbos nekavalo lecha novomoidi likras kavalo Yam ba da dam ba yana na 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 Bnei Shabbos nekavalo Ahai, 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 v'hayu li meshisa, shavai sayich, v'rachaku, kol mevaloich, aham, aham, ahai, ahai, aham, yosis olayich, Eloikoich kim sois chason al kalo aylecha davavavidi likras kavalo yam badadamba yanananai bnei Shabbos nekabelo lecha davavavidi likras kavalo Yam badadai yananai bnei Shabbos nekavelo.
Right, this is taken longer than I thought. So the last thing we're going to be doing tonight is Mizmor Shir. Obviously, it will be another one next week and probably maybe the week after as well. We'll have to see how we go on. But we've definitely not gotten to anywhere near. We're just scratching the surface over here, as I'm sure Alex will be able to tell you. But this is the last thing that we're going to be going through tonight. So we now have welcomed in the Shabbos. And interestingly enough, at this point, there's a discussion in halacha if this is when you accept Shabbos. At what point is it considered the community accepts Shabbos? Some say after Boi B'Shalom. Some say when you say Mizmor Shir Yom HaShabbos, let us sing the song of Shabbos. And some say only at Baruch Hu. But for many people, this is considered now the start of Shabbos. You've welcomed in the Shabbos Boi B'Shalom. Now comes Mizmor Shir Yom HaShabbos. Let us sing the song of Shabbos. So you have over here Mizmor Shir Yom HaShabbos. This is a song that is sung for Shabbos. Very interesting song over here. It has to do very much with the suffering of the righteous and the flourishing of the wicked. So you go through this song, and Shabbos has many, many different themes. And one of the themes of Shabbos is HaKadosh Baruch Hu rules the world. And when you understand that Hashem rules the world, you also understand that whilst when we see certain things happening, we have questions. We say, how does this make sense? Or how can it be? And how can it be that this or that? Yet we know Hashem runs the world. And I think one of the oldest questions, and probably the most difficult question to answer logically at least, is the question of why do the righteous suffer? That's the question that many, many people ask themselves. I know so many righteous people and they suffer. Just last night, we have somebody that we're very close with. He's been a private Rebbe for my son. And overnight, there was some kind of issue. We don't know exactly what happened. We've not yet gotten the exact details. But his 11-year-old daughter passed away from a heart attack or for some kind of heart standing still. Very, very crazy story. And you hear a story like that and you say, such a wonderful individual, such a young girl, how could it be? You ask yourself the question. And sometimes you look at some of the very evil and nasty people in the world and you say to themselves, they're on top of the world. Life seems to be so good for them. How could life be so good for these people and life sometimes be so terrible for very, very righteous people? And therefore we say, Mizmor Shir Yom HaShabbos, Tov Lahodos, you start with the following, Tov Lahodos Hashem, it is good to praise Hashem, Ulazam Shimcha Elyon, and to sing psalms to your name. Lehagid Baboker Chastecha, to mention your chesed, your kindness in the mornings, ve'emunascha, and your faith at night. And that's also an interesting one. You speak about boker and you speak about laila. It's not only day and night, but we also speak about daytime. There are certain times in our life where we feel the sun is shining down on us. And there's certain times in our lives where we feel it's darkness. It's not really light for us. And so sometimes we'll speak about the chesed of God in the day. But at night, sometimes it's very hard to speak about the chesed of God. When things look dark, when things look bleak, when the world looks like everything is wrong, how do you go out? How do you come away from that with a feeling of happiness? So sometimes you can come away with a feeling of happiness. But what you say, but there's a faithfulness there anyway. We have faith that whatever it is that God does, for whatever reason he does it, and we don't know why. And if people ask me, definitely on specifics, but even in general, why do the righteous suffer and why do the wicked prosper? There's no exact answer for what it is. But the psalm over here gives an answer. He says the following. We're on page 270. If you're in the Chief Rabbi Siddur, if you're in the Art Scroll Siddur, you'll be looking at page 320. Hashem, how great are your works, Hashem. And this is so important. We have to realize how deep are your thoughts. We don't know. We like to think of ourselves of the most intelligent things around, and therefore, if I don't understand it, then obviously there is no way of understanding it. But we say, your thoughts are so deep. There's something that we don't understand. A boor will not understand this, and the fool won't understand it either. If you watch wicked people sprout out, they sprout like grass. And the evildoers flourish. Lishamdam adead. The reason that this happens is lehishamdam adead, to get rid of them forever and ever. That's the reason why it is. God gives them the reward in this world so that in the next world he does not have to reward them. So they get everything over here and nothing over there. And then you look at that, your enemies, they will be lost, etc., etc. And then we speak about the tzaddik. What about the righteous person? Tzaddik katama yifrach. The righteous will flourish like a palm tree. Ki erez ba'albanon yizge. And a cedar tree in Lebanon, it will go tall. Shesulim bebeis Hashem. They were planted in the house of the Lord. Suddenly those people that looked like they were shaky, that looked like they didn't have a chance, etc., are now planted firmly in the house of the Lord. Bechatzos elokeinu yafrichu. In the courtyards of God, they will blossom. Oh, Yenuma Meseva, they will still bear fruit in their old age. Some people, as they get older, you find that they lose their touch and everything. But these trees, these tzaddikim, as they get older, they're still producing so much. They will be vigorous and fresh. And that is what we finish off over here in this Tehillim. Lehagi, to tell you, Ki Yashar Hashem, God is straight. God is upright. There's no questions. If you get the final picture, there's no question. Suri is my rock, and I understand there's no evil, there's nothing wrong that's going on over here. The more I look at it and the more I say, I don't understand this and I don't understand that, here you won't understand anything. In this world, you look at God and it looks like God's hiding and you have no idea what's going on. But in the world to come, Shabbos is a glimpse of the world to come. Suddenly we will realize the Rasha didn't have it so good. He would have had much better off having it worse here and having it better in Olam Haba. The tzaddik had it so bad over here. God says, yes, you might have suffered over here, but guess what's waiting for you up there? And when you get to that, when you understand Shabbos, you understand God's might, you understand God's justice, and you understand the fact that God is upright, then Lahagi Kiyash Hashem, Shabbos teaches you God is straight and upright. Suri is my rock. He's the one that I can rely on. V'lo avla sabo. And there's no wrong within him. And I think if Shabbos can teach us that point, that there is no wrong in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and for us to understand that God has his plans and has set everything up for a specific reason, then that makes Shabbos very, very special. I'm going to sign off with that. I'm going to leave you with a Chazan who is going to do some parts of this Mizmor Shir L'Yom Shabbos. Thank you so much for joining us on my part. And, the Chazan, I'm sure, will thank you as well. And we look forward to seeing you next week. We'll sign off after the Chazan finishes.
Thank you. So we're just going to finish with, as the Rabbi said, the final bit of Mizmor Shir Yom HaShabbos, Psalm 92, which we generally, as discussed, possibly at this point we accept the Shabbos upon ourselves, and for example, on a Friday night, Chol HaMoed or Yom Tov, we omit the beginning of Kabbalah Shabbos, but we still maintain these psalms here, so they are an integral part of the davening, as is everything. But the final part, Tzadik Hatomo Yifrach, I'm going to sing Tzadik Hatomo from Lewandowski, who we've mentioned before. Louis Lewandowski was born in Poland in 1821, I think, and passed away spent most of his career and was made famous for his tenure in Berlin, and passed away in Berlin in 1894. He was a prolific composer of shul music, generally for choirs, mixed choirs, or big large choirs, an organ, without organ, etc. But composed beautiful pieces which are 125 years plus after his death, are still a mainstay, a bedrock of shul music around the world in all denominations. Things we sing in our shul from Lewandowski are Tzadik Hatomo, Uvenucha Yoma on a Shabbos morning or a Yom Tov morning, Zocharti Lach on Yomim Noraim, V'Yesoyu also on Yomim Noraim and Musaf, so and others, but still to this day, however many years after his death, a real bedrock of shul music. So Tzadik Hatomo, please join in at home. Tzadik Hatomo Yifrach Ki Yeres Balevonar Yizkeh Shesulim Beveis Hashem Bechatzrois Elokeinu Yavrichu Ad Yenun Beseyav Deshenim Merananim Yiyu Lehavagid Ki Ashar Hashem Tzori Velo Avelo Saba. Much better with a choir or with many people joining in with all the beautiful harmonies, but I hope you enjoyed. Alex has just pointed out that Lewandowski's Yortzeit was 27th of Shavat, so that was about a week ago. Chaim Aruchim to him, to all his family, but to all the Jewish world and the synagogue world around the world who sing his music to this day. I hope you've enjoyed this evening's session. There's more to talk about Friday night davening, about Ma'ariv, about the motifs in Ma'ariv, the Mogin Ovos motif, as opposed to the Ava Rabbah motif, which is Shabbos morning. There's a Mogin Ovos motif of Friday night, which is slightly repeated in some of the weekday davening. Perhaps we can talk about some of that next time, and possibly some of the Zemiris which we sing, which are sung worldwide, Shalom Aleichem, etc., and other things which are sung worldwide on Friday night. So thank you for joining us. Good evening.
Thank you very much for joining us. I hope you enjoy this. What I would say also is there is a Chumash shir in 5 minutes time also on the Zoom, and will be on Facebook Live as well. That's been pushed off. Normally that's at 8:15, but that was pushed off for tonight for that. So I hope to see some of you on that as well. Thank you very much for joining us. Look forward to seeing you next week. And please God, we will do more of these sessions. Thank you for joining us.
Turn it around and put. I just wanted to put on.
Rabbi,
Yes, please.
I suppose it's more relevant to ask the Chazan, but
Well, all right. So you can ask the Chazan. He's not gone anywhere.
all right, good. It would be lovely if you could do Zoom Kabbalah Shabbat services as you did the other week, an hour before Shabbos, because I'm not speaking particularly for myself, but there are obviously people who wouldn't be coming to shul on a Friday night, who would so much benefit from it.
I think what I would say to that is, if you give it another 2 or 3 weeks, Elliot, we're changing. The time is changing very, very soon anyway, and we will be starting to daven early. And as soon as we start to daven early, then that makes things a lot easier for us to be able to have Kabbalah Shabbos on Zoom as well. When Shabbos comes in at the same time as what we daven, it's very complicated, and then
it is very difficult. I appreciate that.
Kabbalah Shabbos an hour before makes it difficult for those people who are, for the Chazan specifically. I'm sure, setting up his family and everything else. It's something that makes it more complicated. So I don't know if we're going to do it now, but I think if you give it another couple of weeks or 3 weeks, we're certainly going to look to try to restart that.
After Pesach or even before Pesach?
It could even be before Pesach. I need to look at the timings, but I think coming closer to Pesach, suddenly Shabbos is going to start coming in 6:30 or something like that. You have another 4. We have now 4 or 5 weeks left to Pesach. So, you'd be looking a lot later. But certainly after Pesach is something we can discuss.
I know it's not fair to ask the Chazan. I know to do 2 services on a Friday. It is a bit much for him.
But maybe we'll see if we can manage something. Then maybe we could still try it once more before Pesach, and then after Pesach it can become something that we do more regularly. Although I'm hoping, let's wait and see what the roadmap looks like on the on the 22nd of February. We can look at that and see how we go on from there.
Rabbi David, I haven't been to shul for 12 months.
So we miss you, Alan.
So these services are very important, and it's very important for the connection between people like me who cannot get to shul and have to be isolated, and Zoom, which is connecting me to the family of Prestwich Hebrew congregation, which is very important.
Oh, absolutely, which is why I'm saying we are going to keep on doing them. And I think even when we come out of lockdown proper, there'll still be a lot of people that are going to take time to get used to the idea of coming back to shul. And we will continue streaming services to make sure that those people that are not yet ready to come back and to join us in shul will still feel comfortable at least joining us virtually. So we're not going to just pull the plug on that. It is going to continue, Alex.
Is it possible, also one quick question, that it's nice to learn new nigunim and atoms, like there's Moshitz and Viznis and Ger and other Lewandowski, etc., etc. If Adam maybe can record something and put it on the shul website, people can learn new nigunim ready for Shabbos in 3 or 4 weeks' time after that, as opposed to just the one-dimensional, one-tune Shabbos. We have such wonderful tunes that it's like if you teach a dog, a child, how much is that dog in the window, and that's all you teach them, that's all they'll know.
Right.
But there's other things as well. So we have a rich heritage.
Definitely consider. I'll bring it to, we have WhatsApp groups so we can send them out. We will send out, maybe the Chazan will send out 1 or 2 things. And the question will be if people really will take the time to sit and to listen and to learn them. But it's worth it's worth the experiment. If it works, great. And it'll bring more music into the pool. The problem is if it doesn't work, so then, there have been times where the Chazan has sung something new and it hasn't caught on amongst people. And then it gives a bit of a flat atmosphere, because what gives really the power to the davening is the fact that people sing along with the Chazan. Sometimes, the Chazan will, do a Chazanish piece, that's one thing. But when the Chazan is singing a part that really is meant for everybody to sing together and it doesn't work and it doesn't go, then sometimes it sort of deflates the whole thing. So it's something that's worth...
But how long did it take?
It's something that's worth...
How long did it take for car bus?
If it works, if it doesn't,
how long did it take?
Maybe we won't do it. But, Or what we could do is, the other thing that we could do is we could create a separate WhatsApp group. I mean, Clive says you can upload the tunes to the shul website. I don't know if people are going to go onto the shul website. I think if we created a separate WhatsApp group and said, these are certain, the Chazan will be sending out tunes from time to time. If you want to be in on this WhatsApp group, he'll send voice notes to that WhatsApp group and everybody else can learn those tunes. I think that might be more useful because you'll, number one, you'll really send it to those people that want to hear it. And number two, you might have enough of a following to be able to create that, atmosphere within the shul. But, absolutely, it's something that we can try.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you both
God
very
bless you.
much.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us. 3 minutes to the Chumash here.
Later, Tov.
Soon.
Korea.
Thank you.
Go ahead.